Wellington Academy wasn't just any school. It was the school, a place where the children of senators, celebrities, and CEOs polished their futures. Chandeliers hung from the ceilings. The lunchrooms served organic salmon. And at its heart stood a grand music room, home to a Steinway and Sons piano. That piano, it was sacred. Unofficially, it belonged to Charlotte Whitmore. Charlotte moved through the world like she owned it, and in many ways, she did. Her father, a world-famous conductor who toured Europe. Her mother, the head of a classical arts foundation. Charlotte had inherited their talent, and maybe a little too much of their confidence. She practiced on that grand piano every day. No one touched it without her permission. Then came Mr. Raymond, the school janitor, graying hair, faded jeans, kind face, quiet presence. He cleaned silently, stayed out of the way, and rarely said more than, "Good morning." To most students, he was invisible, just part of the background. Until one Thursday afternoon, everything changed. Charlotte had been called out of the music room for a quick meeting. She left her sheet music open, her designer violin case on the table, and the piano lit up, an unspoken sign of her ownership. Moments later, Mr. Raymond entered, pushing his cart, mopping the polished wood floor. He paused. Something about the piano drew him in. The curve of the keys, the soft glint of the polish. Almost without thinking, he sat down gently. His fingers hovered, then pressed one C-sharp, then another. A soft, trembling tune began to form, shaky, but full of soul. Then the door opened. Charlotte walked in, with two classmates, and stopped cold. Her mouth dropped open. "Are you serious right now?" Mr. Raymond froze. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to." "Did you seriously just touch my piano?" She cut in, her voice sharp with disbelief. The other girls giggled, pulling out their phones. "Should we live stream this?" one whispered. Charlotte stepped forward, arms crossed. "This piano costs more than your car, if you even have one. What gives you the right?" Mr. Raymond stood quietly and lowered the lid. "It was just a moment, miss. I meant no harm." Charlotte scoffed. "People, like you don't play music like this. Just stick to cleaning floors." The words hit harder than a slap. Mr. Raymond gave a small nod, turned his cart, and walked out without another word. What no one knew, Mr. Green, the school's music teacher, had been standing in the doorway the whole time. That evening, he sat in his office reviewing student auditions, but his mind kept drifting. Raymond's hands on the piano. There had been something there. His technique wasn't polished, but the emotion in those notes, that couldn't be faked. Curious, Mr. Green looked into Raymond's file. Nothing remarkable. No music credentials, no college degrees. But one note stood out. Former piano instructor. Left profession after family loss. The next day, music class. Began like any other. Charlotte walked in with her usual air of superiority. She greeted Mr. Green with a smirk. "Mozart or boring warm-ups today?" Mr. Green smiled. "Actually, we're doing something different." He turned to the class. "Our piano's been a little off lately, and I asked Mr. Raymond to help with tuning." Murmurs filled the room. "Mr. Raymond? The janitor?" To everyone's surprise, Mr. Green gestured to the piano. "Raymond, would you please test the keys for us?" Raymond entered slowly, eyes lowered, as if bracing for another insult. Charlotte smirked, arms folded. Raymond sat, ran his fingers across the keys once, then again, slower this time. The room fell completely silent. Then he began to play. It started as a lullaby, soft, unfamiliar, filled with emotion. The notes shimmered. They danced, dipped, climbed. His fingers moved like brushes on a canvas. Then the melody deepened, more dramatic. a composition so raw, so full of feeling. It pulled at every heart in the room. Charlotte's smirk disappeared. The giggling stopped. Phones were lowered. When he finished, Mr. Raymond stood quietly. "Keys seem fine to me," he said, and walked out. Mr. Green turned to the stunned class. Sometimes greatness hides in plain sight. The room stayed silent long after Raymond left. No one moved, because that wasn't just music. It was a message. Without a single word, the janitor had spoken volumes, and no one heard it louder than Charlotte Whitmore. She sat frozen, fingers resting on her sheet music, her pride dimmed by the haunting melody. For the first time, she had nothing clever to say. Mr. Green broke the silence. "Now that we've seen true expression, maybe we can start talking less about brands and more about brilliance." The class nodded. Even the giggling girls looked down, their phones quietly tucked away. That afternoon, Charlotte walked the halls differently. The power in her step had softened into hesitation. Students whispered, some stared. Her confrontation with Raymond had already made the rounds. Clips of his performance were posted with captions like, "Chush Janitor Charlotte." It stung. That evening, Charlotte sat at her family's grand piano. She tried a few bars of Chopin, but it felt mechanical. Stiff. She sighed, closed the lid. Across town, in a modest apartment, Mr. Raymond sat at a dusty upright piano. Its surface scratched, its stool wobbly. But tonight, he played. And this time, he smiled. It had been years since he'd let his fingers dance freely. Since his wife passed, music had felt too painful. But yesterday stirred something he thought was gone. The next morning, Charlotte arrived early. No janitors, cart outside the music room. But she knew where to find him. Downstairs, in the quiet storage hallway, Mr. Raymond was sorting supplies. She hesitated, then knocked gently. He turned, surprised. "Miss Whitmore?" She lowered her eyes. "I owe you an apology." "That's not necessary." "Yes, it is," she insisted. "I was rude, judgmental, and wrong. I assumed you had no right to touch that piano. But the way you played, it was beyond anything I've ever heard." He smiled gently. "I used to teach, long time ago." Her curiosity sparked. "Why'd you stop?" His eyes grew distant. "My wife passed. Music became heavy." Charlotte nodded, silence stretching between them. Then she asked, "Would you teach me something real? Something that feels like what you played?" He raised an eyebrow. "I thought you had the best instructors money could buy." "Shaish," she laughed softly. "They teach notes. You played a story." He paused, then nodded. "Meet me here after school." Word spread fast. Some students whispered that Charlotte had been seen walking with Mr. Raymond. Others laughed. But she didn't care. For once, she wasn't trying to impress anyone. That afternoon, in the quiet music room, Charlotte and Raymond sat side by side at the piano. No sheet music, no metronome, just the keys. "Close your eyes," Raymond said. "Don't think. Just remember something. Anything that made you feel. Then let your fingers speak." Charlotte tried. She thought of a summer by the lake, with her father, before his world tours began. She let the memory guide her. The keys responded, softly, then brightly, then with a stumble. Raymond didn't interrupt. He listened. And over the weeks that followed, something remarkable happened. Charlotte's playing transformed. Her arrogance faded. Her music found emotion, depth, vulnerability. At the school's spring recital, Charlotte stepped onto the stage alone. The room was packed. Parents, teachers, students, everyone expecting another polished classical piece. Instead, she said softly, This is something original. I call it the Janitor's Song. She played with soul. Every note told a story of transformation, of humility, of a lesson not taught in class, but in silence. When she finished, the room erupted in applause. Backstage, Mr. Raymond watched from the shadows, quiet pride in his eyes. Later that evening, Mr. Green approached the school board with a proposal, a mentorship program, to connect students with the hidden talents of school staff. Because sometimes, he said, genius isn't on the payroll. It's in the hallway, pushing a mop. Months later, Charlotte performed her piece at a regional competition and won first place. In her speech, she didn't thank her famous parents, not her elite instructors. She said, "This is for Mr. Raymond, who reminded me that music isn't about perfection. It's about humanity." In the crowd, a humble janitor wiped away a tear. His heart, lighter than it had been in years,